Tonight on Global TV News Prime. Nigeria commended over health budgetary allocation. In business, Nigeria's central bank reports high loan default rates. On the foreign scene, Russian missile strike on Ukraine kill 34. In sport, Lobby Stars delegated after 27 years in PFL. Hello and a very warm welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Louis Agumofwebe, reminding our viewers that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times 276. You can download the Global TV Nigeria mobile app for Android and iOS devices to keep track of our 24/7 broadcast. Tonight, let's begin by telling you Vice President Kashim Shettima has commended Akwa Ibom State government for adopting and localizing the Human Capital Development Framework, describing it as a model of visionary leadership and grassroots-driven governance. Speaking in Uyo, Akwa Ibom State capital, shortly before unveiling the Arise Human Capital Development Strategic Plan and the Local Government Implementation Roadmap, Shettima applauded Governor Umo Eno for taking bold steps in institutionalizing the Human Capital Development Initiative at all levels of governance in the state. A chief magistrate in the Rivers State Judiciary, AGK George, has tendered his resignation from service, citing unease over the appointment of a sole administrator to oversee the affairs of the state. George, who disclosed that he has put in 16 years in the judiciary, already said the appointment of a sole administrator is tantamount to a quasi-military administration. George's resignation was contained in a letter addressed to Chief Judge of Rivers State through the Secretary of the Rivers State Judicial Service Commission. The presidency has dismissed any notion of fresh revelations emerging from a United States court order directing the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Drug Enforcement Administration to release files on President Bola Tinubu's past investigation. It insisted that the records, which date back to a drug trafficking investigation in Chicago from the early 1990s, have been publicly available for over 3 decades and pose no fresh concerns for the president. This followed a ruling by George Berry Howell of the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., who instructed both agencies to conduct searches and process non-exempt documents in response to a Freedom of Information Act request filed by American legal researcher Aaron Greenspan. The sole administrator of Rivers State, Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas, retired, has called on the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, to refund the 300 million naira his administration paid for the hosting rights of the 2025 annual General Conference. The NBA had previously reversed its decision to hold the event in Rivers State, citing the declaration of a state of emergency and the collapse of democratic structures in the state as reasons for moving the event to Enugu. In response to the developments, Ibas stated that while the state respects the association's right to choose its conference venues, it finds it curious that the NBA, despite its principled position, has not addressed the refund of the 300 million naira already paid by the Rivers State government for the hosting rights of the 2025 conference. In any case, the Nigerian Bar Association's leadership has gone ahead to say that those funds were made available to it by the leadership of suspended Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Global Television will keep an eye out for you as the story unfolds. In the meantime, in a different development in Rivers State, still Port Harcourt, some women have now staged a protest in support of the emergency rule in the state. The women, all dressed in white, had earlier gathered at the Garrison bus stop in the city center from 8 a.m. to begin the rally. They were seen singing solidarity songs in support of the sole administrator, Vice Admiral Ibokete Ibas, retired, along Aba Road and marching towards the government house in Port Harcourt. Governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, are meeting in Ibadan, Oyo State capital, To deliberate on pressing national issues, the meeting is being held at the Executive Chamber of the Governor's Office, Agodi Secretariat in Ibadan. Notably absent from the meeting is suspended Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara. Meanwhile, governors elected on the platform of the People's Democratic Party have unanimously resolved not to join any coalition or merger as the 2027 elections approach. The PDP Governors Forum meeting held in Ibadan, Oyo State, was attended by key governors, including Bala Mohammed of Bauchi State, Peter Mba of Enugu, Agbo Kefes of Taraba, Dauda Lawal of Zamfara, Sheyi Makinde of Oyo, Caleb Mufwang of Plateau, Umaru Fintri of Adamawa, Ademola Adeleke of Osun, and Doye Diri of Bayelsa. Governors Sharif Oborivori of Delta and Umo Eno of Akwa Ibom were represented by their deputies. Let's turn to other stories for you tonight. Senator Ali Undume says the loss of over 300 lives in 252 attacks within the last 6 months by the Boko Haram terrorists in Borno State forced Governor Babangana Zulum to lead a delegation to seek help from the military high command. Undume, who spoke to journalists in Abuja, said the visit was a product of a series of meetings held between the governor and relevant stakeholders across Borno State. The senator, who was part of the delegation that visited the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, Chief of Army Staff and his counterparts in the Navy and the Army in Abuja, acknowledged that the military is doing its best despite being overstretched. An Oyo State High Court sitting in Ibadan, the state capital, has dismissed a suit contesting the nomination and installation of Olugbo of Orile Igbo, Oba Francis Olushola Alao. In his ruling, Justice K.A. Adedoku nullified the case for lack of jurisdiction. For members of the Akimbola family who instituted the suit contested the selection, appointment, and approval of Oba Alao as the Olugbo. The Bureau of Public Procurement (BPP) says it is collaborating with the anti-corruption agencies to ensure that procurement process in the country is not compromised. The Bureau has also promised to publish a revised list of civil society organizations that the ministries, departments, and agencies, MDAs, can invite to observe procurement processes. Director General of the Bureau, Dr. Adebowale Adedoku, made the disclosure in Abuja at a one-day National Stakeholders Interactive Workshop with civil society organizations in Nigeria on the current trends in procurement practices and their roles in procurement reforms. Former presidential candidate of the Labour Party in the 2023 presidential election, Peter Obi, has paid a condolence visit to Plateau State following the recent killings in Bokos area of the state. A statement on X says Obi traveled from Abuja to Jos, the state capital, and expressed sadness over what he described as senseless killings and stated that such violence is unacceptable in a country not officially at war. This is Global Television, and you're watching the live broadcast of News Prime with Uyi Agmofwebe. When the rest of News Prime returns shortly, United Nations economist projects 3% global trade shrink. Details of this shortly, plus foreign and sports stories on the other side of this break. Do stay with us, everyone.
Do you know that Global Television can be watched in Nigeria and all over the world?
Download the Global TV Nigerian mobile app for Android and iOS devices to watch Global Television real-time from around the world. What are you waiting for?
Start downloading and stay connected to Global Television.
The rest of tonight's news broadcast now returns with business, where International Trade Center Executive Director Pamela Cook Hamilton says global trade could shrink by 3% with shift to India, Canada, Brazil due to U.S. tariffs.
$3.3 billion in annual exports to the U.S. by 2029.
U.S. President Donald Trump unveiled a massive tariff plan last week, with the White House later announcing a 90-day pause on what is now known as reciprocal tariffs for most countries except China, which in turn decided to impose 125% tariffs on U.S. imports. Uyi Agmofwebe reporting for Global TV News. Power generation companies Gencos have warned that power plants across the country are facing imminent shutdown due to a huge 4 trillion naira debt owned by the federal government. In a statement issued by the Board of Trustees, Chairman of the Association of Power Generation Companies, APGC, Colonel Sani Bello, the generation companies said they are owed 2 trillion naira for power supplied in 2024 and 1.9 trillion naira in legacy debts. The companies noted that plants were being paid less than 30% of monthly invoices for power supplied to the national grid. Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, has slightly lowered its forecast for oil demand growth, citing the impact of U.S. tariffs on the world economy. The Saudi-led oil cartel said in a monthly report that it now expects demand to grow by 1.3 million barrels per day in 2025, down from a previous forecast of 1.4 million barrels per day. The adjustment was mainly due to first quarter data and the expected impact on oil demand given recent announcements of U.S. tariffs. On the foreign scene, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, has announced a new rule requiring all foreign nationals who stay in the country for more than 30 days to register with the federal government. The directive introduced this week is one of the strictest immigration measures in recent years. The agency stated in a post titled "Message to Illegal Aliens" and tagged to President Donald Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Israel has intensified its land and air attacks on Gaza, with artillery and air raids hitting several areas of Khan Yunis in the south. The World Health Organization says a Palestinian child has died due to disruption of medical care after Israeli forces bombed the Al-Hil Arab Hospital in Gaza City as global condemnation grows over the assault. Yemeni officials say U.S. attackers near the capital Sana'a have killed 6 people and wounded 20 as the Houthi rebel group claims missile attacks on Israel's main airport. Yemen's Houthi rebels say the number of dead from U.S. strikes carried out overnight in west of the capital Sana'a had risen to 7 dead with dozens wounded. The strikes targeting a factory in the Al-Sawari industrial zone in the Bani Mata region led to the death of 7 citizens and the injury of 29 others, including 1 in critical condition. U.S. strikes targeted various other areas in the country, including in the Sa'ada and Hudaydah provinces. Let's turn to sports quickly for some excitement. Nasarawa United players have been rewarded with 3.5 million naira for their match day 33 victory over Plateau United. The announcement of the cash gift is contained in a statement signed by H.A. Amos, Director of Media of the club in Lafia, the state capital. Governor Abdullahi Sule and the State Commissioner for Youth and Sports Development, Kwanta Yakubu, handed out the cash gifts to the players. Nigeria's Flying Eagles will begin their quest for an 8th continental title against Tunisia, Kenya, and Morocco in Group B of the 2025 Under-20 AFCON in Egypt. The group stage draw conducted at the Egyptian Football Association headquarters in Cairo officially signaled the start of the 18th edition of the tournament that has long served as a launchpad for some of Africa's finest football talents. Running from April 27 to May 18, this year's championship will feature 13 teams divided across 3 groups. Group A with 5 teams, while Groups B and C will each include 4. The top 2 teams from each group, along with the 2 best third-placed teams, will progress to the quarterfinals. On a side note, Nasarawa United have been banished from their Lafia Township Stadium and fined 6 million naira by the Nigeria Premier Football League (NPFL) for repeated violations involving poor security and fan misconduct. The sanctions follow confirmed reports of an assault on Plateau United player Vincent Temitokpe and at an attempt to harass match officials after the match day 33 fixture between both clubs. In a 4-count charge, the NPFL cited Nasarawa United for breaching rules B13, 52, B13, 22, 69 and C11 of the league's framework and rules. Tonight, we end the news with a recap of some of our big stories. Let's take a look at sports now, where Quadri Aruna has returned to the global spotlights in Monaco as Nigeria's only hope at the 2025 International Table Tennis Federation ITFF World Cup, facing Benin Republic's Abdul Kadir Salifu at the Galaxy Arena. And that's your news tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'm Uyi Agmofwegwe. Just reminding you that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365, Star Times 276, as well as across all of our social media platforms using @Global TV NG. Remember that you can find us and all of our broadcast content on our app, the Global TV Nigeria mobile app, available for devices compatible with Android and iOS platforms. Again, on behalf of the entire team, we appreciate you for your time with us. We'll see you again. Bye-bye.